Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tribe TV here on the GIC.org. This is a monthly video magazine with myself, Bernard Alvarez, and Roxy Lopez. Today, we're going to be discussing something called the Hive mentality and social engineering. And this is a topic that was kind of brought up spur of the moment with Roxy and myself during a conversation. And we were asking ourselves, why are people motivated to do what they do? One of the things that we've noticed, especially in our lives and in the lives of the people around us, how so many of us put on this facade of just being so busy. And we wondered if people say that we're busy and we're constantly trying to show the world how busy we are in order to look successful. And why do we care if we look successful to everyone? So beyond that, we've figured out that this goes a lot deeper than psychological, whether it be self-esteem issues or anything like that. And we just couldn't help but wonder, and decided to dig in a little bit further into the idea of what is it society? Is it programmed into us? What is social engineering? What is the hive mentality? Because so many people do this. So without further ado, let me welcome Roxy Lopez back to the show this month. Hello, Roxy. Welcome back. We're so happy to have you on again. And as usual, it's such a pleasure to have you on the GIC.org and GIC TV.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Thanks.
Well, as I was just telling everybody, you and I, we discuss these topics throughout the month, and something just seems to always snap with us and click as far as what the topic's going to be. And I remember we were talking basically on a personal level. Why do we have to keep being so busy? And I was sharing with you how during my days in, I guess you want to call it, 3D corporate world or whatever, that I constantly wanted to fill in my calendar and I had to look busy and I just didn't want to give myself an hour of freedom. And I still have a little bit of a habit of doing that, and I've been forcing myself to take some personal time. But where do we get that from? And I'm wondering if maybe you had wanted to share some ideas of where that came from, and where do we get this this fake identity that we need to look busy in order to come across as successful?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to convey that there are different times in our life, different segments, different phases, if you will. And so, just to backtrack a little bit and just, not to be isolated from the conversation at all. It's all part of it. There's always a bigger picture. When we're young, when we come into the world, we're sort of empty. And as far as what we know, if you look at a baby, a newborn baby, they absorb everything around them. Everything is new to them, and they just take it in and take it in. We've all did that when we were a child. And then there's conversations around us, and parents and siblings and family members when we're still, very in the critical age from 1 to 5 years old of just learning everything. I mean, we're just very curious and we just take it all in. And there are sometimes in that first 5 years where we start to pick up some already some information that's not real. It's just based on a mom's perspective or a dad's, and this is no offense to anybody. It's happened to all of us. It's easy to do. And we just start sort of picking up and observing, different perceptions that the people around us have without really knowing it. It's all subconscious, you see. And there is a certain element of the subconscious that continues throughout our entire life. So we're not really aware of it. We just pick it up and we start to define rules and regulations for ourselves in that subconscious. As a matter of fact, some psychologists say that it's the subconscious that actually runs our entire life. And I don't have a hard time believing that at all. So anyway, so we, proceed into our, teens, and we're starting to grow up, we're starting to become adults, and we're surrounded by teachers and peers and et cetera, and we start to adapt ideals, motivations, goals in our life based on sort of a hive mentality, a collective mentality. It didn't come from nowhere. It came from our environment. A lot of it comes from our environment. As an example, I was one who strived in basketball. I was a first string center in high school. I did it because I kind of got roped into it. I was tall. I was in Hawaii. You know, people aren't very tall there, and so I got roped into it, and I dug it. You know, and it was very tough. You know, because I wasn't really athletic, so to speak, but I became athletic, and it was part of that Hive mentality. Because really, if I had to do it all over again, I would have been playing music in high school with the musicians because I'm a musician. But you see, I sort of got talked into it, and you'll be great at it. And then I really wasn't that great. I just happened to be tall, you know. And so I got, that, and then on top of it, in order to stay in basketball in my private school, you had to have a B average or above. So I had to get an A average. And I know that Bernard and I were talking about this. You were also an A student. And somehow I think you and I have a lot in common. We became overachievers through that period in high school. Overachievers. Everything had to be right. Everything had to. So, here I was, a musician, a scholastic leader in my school. I was in, sports. I wasn't just in basketball. I was in volleyball as well. And I was spread very thin. And I was social, very, very social. And then I had my parents to deal with, and I lived with my grandmother. So I started to develop something that I don't think is very cool, actually. I started to develop that I'm the kind of person that can do anything. That's not a bad thought, people. What happened is I believe that I can do anything, but I started to do everything. There's a difference between those two. I can do anything, but I'm going to do everything. And so I think the belief system started there. But then as you and I have talked, there is also a subconscious programming that goes on in our society. There's not just our peers and members of society, but there truly is a hierarchy. Hollywood,
Yeah.
magazines, television. You had a great story. You should share it about when you got involved, in that mode and became the man, Bernard, and you were led into clubs and free drinks, and society just went, yeah, you're the man. Talk about that, because I think that's a really great comparative, and where that really came from. Was that really the real you, Bernard, or was that what you were supposed to be?
Yeah. And you know what? And I think we've touched on this in the past, actually. And I can't help but just ever so quickly to share a little bit about what Roxy is talking about. Back in the 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s, I was fairly popular and very, popular, I guess, for lack of a better term. I was put on all the guest lists on South Beach nightclubs. I had my little entourage in South Florida, and we would get in for free, get free drinks and free food, and partied with, the mayors and the cops, and all, very, very elitist mentality. But the funny thing is, and this is the point that I think we're talking about today, is that within me, I knew that wasn't me, and I knew that I was living this facade. I had to play, and it's funny, I had to play ditzy and silly and childish, and it's probably where I get my giggle. Everybody knows I giggle a lot, and I think that came from that fake persona that I had created of this fun party guy, that everybody wanted to be around. But I will say, during that whole entire time, it was as if, and we see it now on Facebook, and here's a good example for everyone to relate to, is I can post about human consciousness, politics, corruption, personal empowerment all day long, and the moment I post that picture of the kitty, it goes viral. They love that little kitty picture, the little tickle and the hee and the ha, and that's exactly the way my life was. It was the things that mattered to me, the things that were important to me, I had to keep kind of inside of me, and I thank goodness I had an outlet. I've been a teacher now for 20-something years, but it's different when you're popular with 100 people versus, several thousand people. And I'm talking, in South Florida, but 10 years ago or whatever. When you have 1,000 people celebrating you and throwing you parties and this and that, of course you're going to play into that and really not really be yourself. And that's what I think Roxy was talking about, that we become this fake idea of who we are because, I guess, because of the social benefits we get from it. It's great. It was great to have free drinks and free dinners for me and my friends and not have to pay the $50 cover charge. But I will say, though, during the whole time, it felt like I wasn't being myself, and I was selling myself short and selling my soul, for lack of a better term.
Right. Well, yeah, and then we start subscribing to our own BS. In other words, we start creating, and I'll speak in I terms, I start creating these rules for myself. In other words, in the subconscious, it comes up. See, it's all been absorbed in the subconscious because, we see somebody on television and they talk about how they're a mom and they're an actress and they've risen to the top and they're on tour and they're doing an album. They're a musician, actress, wife, this, that, blah, 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 blah. And we start absorbing all of that in the subconscious and we start acting that out. That's the best way to say it. We begin to act that out because we want to be like that for whatever reason, because that is the pyramid of success. That is what is being shown to us socially. That's being shown to us that if we are not that, remember the era about a decade ago of the little tiny dog? Every actress and actor had a little tiny dog. Poor little tiny dogs, by the way. And they went everywhere with their little tiny dogs, and they got in restaurants, and so everybody else got to go in restaurants with their little tiny dogs and their little purse dog. Okay, it became a fad.
Yeah.
And everyone had to go out, and it was all over magazines, front page of magazines. It became hip. That's social engineering, because let me tell you what happened with that whole scene. First of all, a live animal shouldn't be a fad, for one, just in my opinion. But what happened with that in a nutshell is that all kinds of chicks, mostly women, because, the guys weren't rocking around with little tiny puppy dogs. It was mostly women who ran out and got that little dog. They had to have the dog like the Gucci shoes.
Yep. They
had to have it because it was a sign or a reflection of success. How moronic is that? So, but when the fad closed, when it was no longer a fad, do you realize that this was in a pet magazine, like 80% of those women took those dogs to the pound?
Oh, no.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. You see how dangerous this can get? And then if you want to look at it internally, for ourselves, why would we want to live an unauthentic life anyway? It makes us sad. You heard Bernard. It's like it makes you feel empty, and something inside you tells you this ain't right. I'm not saying it's not cool to be popular. I'm not saying that you shouldn't get a freebie or a ticket to a show. I did my entire life. I still do as a musician. But I'm saying it's if you believe that all of that makes you a sign of success, you're going down a dark road, and the stress that causes us. There's a lot of stress that causes us when we conflict with our own divinity. And that is a conflict of our own divine right. So back to you'd brought it up as well, that where did this change, the Industrial Revolution that glamorized all of this. Yeah. But let me tell you, this is engineered. This is how the masses are kept together and controlled. This is a control feature. Don't kid yourself. This is coming from out there. This is coming from media. This is coming from above. And I don't mean heaven.
Yeah, right.
It is And the Hive mentality, if you all want to go and read about it, I'll have some links in the article of this show, and you can do a little bit more. All I think that Bernard and I are trying to do is sort of trigger this with us. with all of us, to trigger it, to take a look at it. Because for me, I want my freedom. I want my subconscious and conscious freedom. I want my divine right. And it's not your fault. I really want to say this. A lot of people are operating in this capacity of the hive mind that's the negative, the socially engineered mind. You're in a jail. You're in a mental jail. And you know it already. You're suffering from that. You know it at some level that life just doesn't feel right. And you're stressed out. I guarantee you that you're stressed out. Okay? Because when I slip into this mentality occasionally for myself, I get stressed out. And it goes against the flow. Okay? Because we are all natural, energetic beings on this planet. We're in a flow. We should be in a flow. And look at how it's all been engineered, that we're 9 to 5 and this and that. And we travel on this certain road to get to this certain location to work, this certain job to do this certain task. It's really boxed in. And there is a freedom when you begin to look at your own mental programming, okay, and say to yourself, I know I want to break these bad habits, because that's what they are. At the very least, they're bad habits, and those habits own us.
Absolutely. And you know what? In doing that, I feel, and let's look at the big picture as far as what we're talking about here. Everybody knows, I've never hidden it from anyone. My intention, and I feel my role here on this planet, and through being the face and the mouth of GIC, is to help ease in and help bring in this new paradigm, this new way of thinking, this new way of living. And in order for us to start creating that, we have to create it within ourselves. And unless you can break the habit, unless you can be honest with yourself, and that's not to say that you have to quit your job. That's not to say that you have to take the back roads to work, or something like that. It's just being conscious of what you're doing it with intention. One of the classes that I teach, especially to quote unquote people that are just awakening beginners and whatnot, is one of the topics we discuss is the automatic pilot. And a lot of this is automatic pilot. It is trained, it is ingrained, it is programmed into us with media, with our families, with our friends. I have a very good example of when I started doing what I do, and I turned my back on the system. When I turned my back on the system, I was homeless for about a year or so afterward. And thank goodness for the kindness of friends that allowed me to develop the GIC on their couches and in their spare bedrooms. But at the same time, you could see where my old friends, quote unquote, were resentful that I had turned my back on the system, where I was being called lazy because I didn't have a job. Meanwhile, I was working 18 hours a day, where I was called a freeloader, even though I was cooking and cleaning for whoever I was staying with. And it's not because, and I'm not saying this because they're bad people, it's because they believed in the system that if you don't go to work and get a real paycheck, then you're a loser. And we still get that once in a while. I mean, we ask for donations. For goodness sake, we have a media network here. We do multiple programs, radio shows, an interactive network around the world with millions of viewers. And people still
Mm.
have the nerve to say, well, you have to get a job. Okay. This is my job. And and again, it's not about the people. They're not bad people. It comes from the social programming. Why don't you have your paycheck? Why aren't you working 40 hours a week at a corporate established place? So again, back to where I started this particular rant, is that if we are going to change the paradigm, we need to change the way we live our lives. And in order to break free of that social programming and that hive mentality, just be conscious of your actions. Drive to work with intention. Go to work, even if it is working for McDonald's or Burger King, conscious that you are just going to work to do this and this and this, but don't let that be your identity. It is when we become identified with that false personality, that false individual that goes to work at Burger King and pulls in that paycheck and takes the highway and goes, on rush hour every day for no reason. That's when we begin to lose ourselves, and that's when we, like Roxy said, we feel something is wrong. We know that something is wrong, but we do it anyway. And there's a term for that. It's called cognitive dissonance. So that's something I would suggest everybody look up, Google it, read about it. Cognitive dissonance, going against what you know is wrong inside of you, even though you know it's wrong. So again, that's something that we can all relate to, and it's nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault. It's just a matter of snapping out of it and moving on to moving into life of the next day with a little bit more consciousness.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's just astounding. It's really important, because a lot of people will never just recognize it because it's so subliminal. It's so, you know what I mean? And so you won't recognize it for yourself. And it's not to say, if you ask a lot of people about their job, even they'll say, if they're, not on camera, they'll say they don't like their job and they don't like the people they work with. And that's really common. And right now, there's been an economic environment that's been created now since 2008, where we're going through it all over again with this social engineering, that those who have a job are so grateful, so amazed, and it's not to say don't be grateful, but see, we're going through it again. It's yet another level. That same person was working in 2007 for $25 an hour. Now they're working for $8 an hour, and they're so grateful. Are you really grateful? And I do think that part of this is where we get the idea that we really can't change our life because we have to do certain things to stay alive, to eat, to have a roof over our head, etc. And here's a perfect example. Honest to God, when I was 5, I was starting to play music already. And by the time I graduated from high school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I already knew it all through high school. I fought with them. Am I good enough? Am I pretty enough? Do I write good enough songs? Am I a good enough performer? I walked through that fear and did it anyway. And throughout my entire 20s, I'd already had one record deal in my 20s, and I got 3 more in my 30s, and I still get offered to do work and tour. My point is this: I went unabashedly out into the world, not knowing anything else other than I'm a musician and I want to play music, man, and I don't care. That's what I want to do. But the peers, the people around me, would do the 21 questions. Well, don't you have a job, and how do you pay your bills, and blah blah blah, like didn't accept music as a career.
Yeah.
Just like they don't accept being an author as a career or being an artist as a career. I think it's pretty alarming. But if you look in history, it's artists and musicians and all the rest of it, the fine arts, the arts, were never accepted as a real place in society. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
When we all need it, because it's the heart of the planet. Music and creation is everything we all should be, because we all have the creator within. We should all be creating. And so what I'm saying is, my life didn't get robbed. I did what I came here to do. I do what I came here to do. But what I am saying to you, this is so important. I did it against all odds. Yeah. I did it without support. And And it worked. And I got things that I wanted. And I got to work with people I wanted to work with. Have you ever worked with Elton John? I have. Or Stevie Nicks, or all the rest of them. I got to achieve my goals step by step by step. And when you live the life that you're chosen to live, guess what? You don't go to work. It wasn't work.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to impart. So if there's anybody even youthful listening to this, really think about it. What do you do best? What do you want? Do not buy into this social engineering garbage. You do not have to drive a Beamer on using an iPhone and have all the latest technology and wear certain clothes and certain shoes and go to certain clubs. No, you don't. No, you don't. Who said? And you will thrive. You will live the life you came here to live. You will. And you will be happy. And you will be, most importantly, fulfilled, because you're walking your divine path. You're walking the one you wrote. That's what we're all here to do. And as far as consciousness goes, that's what the paradigm shift of consciousness is creating and is supporting. I support uniqueness. I support eclectic. I support thinking outside of the box. I support someone who's a little odd. I like odd people. They bring something new to the table, and I don't know. I mean, I get so excited talking about it because it inspires me. It reminds me, like, yeah, man, where did I get that thought yesterday? What makes me think that I have to do, that? Where did I get that from? And you said it best, Bernard. All we need to do is tune in and be conscious of our every action. And I guarantee you within the first month, you will drop 50% of your habits. You'll just drop them.
Absolutely.
Because they don't serve you.
And that's a part of the awakening. And I feel that that's why we're here. I mean, that is why we are here. Not only me and Roxy or the GIC or the Truth Denied team or the GIC team. I'm talking about you who's watching. If you're watching this, that's why you're here. You're a part of this awakening process. You are a part of changing the paradigm. And hopefully our talk here is giving you a little bit of inspiration of what you can do next to break that social programming, to break the social engineering, and to break that hive mentality. Now, let's talk a little bit about that hive mentality thing, because we hear so much about the New World Order and the Illuminati, and how everyone's going to look the same and sound the same and have the one world religion, and we need to stay separate. I can't help but think that's a part of the social engineering as well. All this talk about nationalism, all this talk of, the economy's collapsing. You know what? Good. Let it collapse. We'll create a new one. Oh, countries are losing their sovereignty. Good. Let them. I don't want the politicians who are running the show to be the ones running the show. We, the people, are the ones that need to run the show. But in order for us to create this new paradigm, we've got to get over this idea that becoming one consciousness, one world, is a bad thing. I think that's a part of the social programming that we're getting.
I agree. Success is not what most of us think or have been taught it is. Success is a mindset. You either live successfully or you don't. And success, to me anyway, is living the life that I carved, that I created, that I want for myself. It's not what the poster says or the front cover of Glamour magazine says. It's what you designed. We are the designers, the architects of our own lives. But when we fall prey to social engineering, they become the architects of our life. They mold us. And I think everyone can relate to that. I think at some level, anyone can at least acknowledge that. It doesn't mean you can't ever go to the movies again or turn on a TV or watch or listen to the news. It doesn't mean that you can't socialize anymore because everybody's part of the hive, you know? It doesn't mean that. When each of us step up to our own plate, and it's not easy. Some people have a harder time. Some people actually believe that the programming is who they are.
Yeah.
They really do. I have very close friends and family who are in that. Okay. I'm not saying, by the way, that I'm better. I'm not saying I'm better because I can at least see it and do something about it. All I'm saying is that I feel better off. The big difference. I'm not better. I feel better. Knowing. Even when I was in the music industry, there were certain parameters within that creative field, right? Because I'm the artist, and who do you think the manager and the attorneys and the record labels are? They're not the artists. They're part of the social engineering. They want to mold that artist and drop that artist into society molded already.
Yeah.
And we continue to be now a product of social engineering. It's really uncool, man. So, in other words, all that we're trying to say at this point is that social engineering exists, and it has for a very long time. It is a mental and subliminal programming, and it's not ooh ah scary wah. It's not any of that. It's right there at your fingertips. We don't have to comply with that social engineering. And yes, you will be a free thinker, and you won't be thinking like everyone else in your neighborhood, but you'll start to attract others who do think like you and have that freedom that you have. You know, I remember my own father telling me about the 60s because I was going around with, you know, and put a little thing on my head, you know, like I was like wanting to be a hippie and I was a little kid. And when my dad was like, I don't want you growing up like that. And you're just looking at all this peace and love and hippie stuff and free love. Are you going to have free? I didn't even know what he meant by free love. Do you know what my parents thought free love went? They thought it meant living in communes and me having sex with a different guy every night. So my parents were like terrified of the, you know, the movement of the cult, they called it. You know what I mean? And so, you know, but I thought they were nuts, you know, and I was like a little kid, and I thought they were nuts for even thinking all of that, you know? So some of us come in totally awake and gravitate to that, you know, that road to freedom, that life of red, white, and blue peace signs, whatever, you know, we were pretty much awakened. It doesn't mean we didn't fall prey at different times in our lives. It doesn't mean that. And the other thing I was going to say, please at least take a look at it for yourself, because it does affect the whole consciousness. You know, the more that we become awake, we become friendlies to one another, and we affect that consciousness as a whole. And it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. It is, and you can just see it happening. You see it happening around the planet. There is no way to deny that people are changing. I mean, people are changing. People are becoming more accepting of one another, more supportive of one another. I mean, at the same time, we're seeing a little acceleration on the other darker aspects of the world. But at the same time, we're seeing others becoming more self-conscious, consciousness, I should say, rather than self-conscious. You know, and speaking of which, and we didn't have a chance to talk about it today, but here's a great example, in my humble opinion, of a very recent social engineering tactic, and I don't believe in in coincidence. I'm not one to believe that anything is a coincidence. I believe either we created it or somebody else did. However, the reality of it is that 3 days ago we were all gung ho about the Supreme Court decision on marriage equality. You see it everywhere. The little red equal signs everywhere. Everywhere. And everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. And yes, it's a very important cause. Of course it's an important cause. Who's not going to jump on the equality bandwagon? I mean, unless you're a hateful bigot or something like that. But most of us in this consciousness movement are, of course, going to support human rights and equality. So what happens while we're all looking at our red equal signs and changing our Facebook icons? Monsanto is given immunity to do whatever they want. The same day, the day before actually, the Supreme Court decision or the Supreme Court hearings begin. And so you can't help. And I'm not saying it's not it's not human rights campaign's fault for doing it. It's not the Supreme Court's fault for doing it. But I will say somebody somewhere knew we would be distracted and took advantage of it. That to me is social engineering. An
Well,
example of it. An example of it.
absolutely. It's a grand marketing scheme. And if we could just replace the word marketing with social engineering, I think we'd start
You
to
can
get a
say that
clue.
again. Yeah.
Because marketing is that. Marketing, your big companies market to the world and basically target marketing. Listen, they call it target marketing themselves. It's targeting us. It targets us and it hits us on a subconscious level.
Yeah.
That's the colors they use, the phrase they use, the music they use. It's all targeting the subconscious, the subliminal. Even though you can hear the music, see the stuff, watch the car drive off the lot, whatever it is, regardless, we're getting bombarded with it. We're just getting, but like you said, the good news is we're also getting sick. We're just getting sick of trying to hold it all up.
Yeah.
And we really are just giving, listen, you can undo social engineering for yourself. All of us can. And when you undo it, you start to see some of us call it the matrix. You start to see the matrix. You start to see there really is a matrix of lies that we're sitting in the middle of. Because why? Because for governments and elitists, global elites and corporations, it works. That's the only reason why they do it, kids. It works. It wouldn't work if we didn't allow it to work. That's all there is to it. It wouldn't work. And we're hearing the words non-compliance a lot lately. With GMOs, with corporations, with big electric companies, with big utility companies, we're starting to hear, I'm not going to comply anymore. I'm going to go to my small farmer and get my food there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. The word non-compliance is coming up over and over and over again. I think it's a great word. And people tell me all day long that I can't not comply. Why? I'm not saying I'll never have a computer. I can't do shows. I'm doing what makes sense. These shows make sense. Doing radio makes sense. Having the website, writing articles, that makes sense. It has a reason. Exactly. It has a reason. I'm saying start somewhere. There's a process. There are areas of our life where we can begin to start to not comply. Period. All right. And it's a process. So the more we don't, then we take that off and that off and that off. Now we're not buying into this. We're not buying, because as we go, we're going to get clearer and clearer and clearer. We have got to get out of the victim mentality of this. But I really do think that it starts with the social engineering, the programming that has happened. How can anybody break out of this if they're in a program? How can you possibly break out of the rest of it?
Absolutely. And the truth of the matter is that social engineering / marketing, let's just use that term interchangeably now, they really do work on your subconscious. I mean, the reality of it is we posted it in the event description. It works in the bugs in the program of human consciousness. And the feel good thing or feeling like you're doing something that is helpful is something that they can exploit or is exploited. And I don't like to say they. I will give you an example. That Earth Hour situation a week ago was I will not participate. I would not participate. Yes, of course, it's a very good cause, saving energy, not wasting petrochemicals, petrofuel. Of course, it's a very good cause. But the reality of it is that it's an hour a year to make people feel that they've done something. And to turn off your lights and sit in the dark, it to me is really not going to change anything. It's a marketing campaign to make you feel good. And I've had people write me and say, "Oh, but it's great to raise awareness." No, it's not. If anything, it gives people that feel good for 1 hour and they forget about it for the rest of the year. The same thing is happening with this the Supreme Court thing and that red equal sign thing. You know what? Equal rights are for everyone, and it should have been that way in the beginning, and it should be that way into the future. And if you don't agree with equal rights for people, then you don't agree with equal rights for people. But the reality of it is that we are born with rights. That is why they're called rights. We shouldn't have to have someone make it legal or illegal to be who you are, or for that matter, to love and to be with the person that you love for the rest of your life. To me, this is just, again, making people feel good, making people feel that they're doing something. Of course, it's probably going to pass. That's the way the social evolution is. I have no doubt it'll pass. I might be wrong. I think that it's time, and it's definitely time for the establishment to acknowledge equality. But the reality of it is, we were looking the wrong way. Because what good is marriage equality when we're all unhealthy, eating frankenfoods, and giving Monsanto complete immunity so a gay couple gets to adopt children. Well, guess what? That child will probably be affected by GMOs. And when you're ready to go sue Monsanto for screwing up your body and the body of your children and your grandchildren, they will now be immune because we were too busy putting pretty little red equal signs up. That is a perfect example of social engineering. And I know I'm going on about it, but I feel very, I don't know how many people, and I'm sure many people already know, I myself am homosexual. But you know what? I do not feel the need for us to give in to these silly little fluffy campaigns. No one's going to stop me from loving who I love. No one's going to stop me from being who I am. Of course I know who I am. I don't need to have it put into the Constitution.
Well, and that's something that people have been saying for years and years and years. I mean, you can have a lifetime partner, and I can have a lifetime partner or a partner of today or whatever, and why is government involved? And I get where you're coming from. At the same time, what you were describing earlier with the Earth Day, that's a short-term solution to a long-term problem. To have 1 hour of lights out,
Yeah.
that's what that is. And it just gives everybody, like you said, the feel good that they did something, that they took action, and that's it. And they just write the whole thing off from there. A lot of people will, because they did that. And so now they're done. We've all done that. We've all thought that way before. I walked in the Susie G. Komen that year, so I've done my service.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. And then I think the question would be with this is, your heart knows something that your programming doesn't want you to know. So the programming keeps us, or tries to keep us, separate from our heart. All you have to do is ask yourself, what do I want to be aligned with? All the fluff will drop off. What do I want to be aligned with? And the concepts drop off. Because I think anything that the thing that we all want is love. Love is fulfilling. Love is the end all, to be in that righteous love. And when we align with love, a lot of things start to fall away. And that program mind will fight to stay in place, to fight to keep you in control. But really, a process will take place, and you can drop the subliminal programming and live a healthier, freer life and not buy into all this nonsense that's going on around us, because that's what it is. It's ramping up. It's evil. It's dark. It's BS.
And it's a distraction.
And I don't want to play.
It's to me, yeah, exactly. And it's a distraction. I feel that many of us could be doing so much better for our planet and for humanity. Not only for humanity, but for life. Animals, trees, air, water. That's life.
And
Those
all,
are the things that we need to be focused on and
yeah.
not distracted from.
Absolutely. And that's living. You know what I mean? I came here to live. And living is expression. Living is a vibe. Living is love. Living is growing. Living is goal seeking. Living is creating. All the rest of this is not living to me. It's just a zombie, robotic, freaking programming BS. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be one of those old ladies that is sitting on my wheelchair. I mean, sorry, wheelchair, high chair, whatever, chair out in the front of my
You're
porch.
hover around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Looking out at whatever the mountain that I decided to live by, whatever I'm going to be doing, and saying, I had a good life. I had a great life. I lived my life. I mean, I can do that right now. And I guess I'm saying I want that for all of you.
Absolutely. And we all deserve it. I feel that, again, hopefully discussions like this will help stimulate people into getting honest with themselves, getting honest with what they're feeling, getting honest with maybe taking better care of ourselves. We talked a little bit about, while we were preparing this program, of things that we can do to really give ourselves a break and not have to, I don't want to say the word comply, but be driven from the inside to do the things that we're being told to do. And I have one simple philosophy in life, and yes, it's the old what is it, the Wiccan Reed: "Do as you will, harm none." I mean, we need to start living that way, and I love that philosophy because of the fact that it takes responsibility for our action, but as well, it takes off the responsibility of trying to be something that you're not. Do what you will, harm none, including harming yourself, of course. But a good example, and we spoke about this, Roxy, and I had this awakening when I was preparing this program with Roxy. We were talking about the to-do list. We all have one, and how we constantly, especially someone like myself, I constantly feel, well, you know what? I've got a 2 hour gap. Maybe I can get something done in this time. And someone, doing what I do, I run the GIC, I produce 4 programs, I'm constantly talking to guests, I'm constantly creating posts, I'm constantly monitoring the web page, and as well as trying to come up with ideas to further the awareness of the GIC and our philosophy and our reach. So I have a to-do list. I have a very thorough to-do list. Every day I have a whiteboard right in front of me. I'm looking at it right now. And there's a to-do list with everything I need to do. Edit that video. Right now it says prepare for administrative report. Yes, we have an admin meeting next week. Something to do with Revolution Radio that I actually took care of. Thank you. Work on the YouTube channel, as I still have a lot of work to do there. Create the new video for GIC TV. I actually got that done, so I need to erase some of that stuff. But the reality of it is that it's always something to do, always something to do, always something to do. And I told Roxy when we were creating this program, I said, you know what, I'm changing that. It's not a to-do list anymore. From now on, it's going to be my goals list. Get rid of the to-do mentality. It's what I intend to do for the day, and if I don't get it done, so be it. Why make yourself crazy? How many of us do that? And I understand if you have a to-do list like pick up the children from school, well, you have to do that. But as far as cleaning out the gutters or, whatever it may be, if you overdo your time and you're not feeling well, what kind of life is that? I mean, what kind of life is that?
Yeah, and we just all need to learn. And I love the idea of when you had told me about the goal list versus the to do list. To do sounds sort of, it sounds Nazi. It sounds like, if I don't do this to do list, I'm in trouble. And it's like, come on, it's just me, and I'm making all these rules for myself, and then I'm suffering for the rules that I make for myself, getting myself stressed out, and I'm not living up to my own rules that are just BS anyway. Goal has such a lighter goal has such a freer acceptance tone, energetic to,
Vibration. Yeah.
yeah, totally. So goal means, God, here's my goals, and then you can feel good when they're accomplished. Or you don't have to do it all right now or today to feel like a successful person. And that's all it is. It's just a process of, again, learning how to do that. And where did we get this thinking from? I have.
And again, it brings us full circle to where did we get this from exactly? Is it
See,
socially engineered? Is it our family? Is it our friends? We spoke about it and you touched about it in the beginning of how this kind of started with the Industrial Revolution, where, instead of doing what you had to do, like let's say prior to the Industrial Revolution, especially here in America, we were basically living on farms. We had chores to do, which I don't like that word chore. We got to change that word to goal. We had goals to do, but you had to do it, to create your food or to, get dinner. Dinner was an all-day affair. All of these things. So as we freed up our time, and now think about the silliness of this. The more time we had, the technology gave us more free time. It's funny how we've gone out of our way to refill that time with either useless or unnecessary to-dos. I thought technology was to make our life easier, and yet now you see all of our young people constantly staring at their iPhone, ticking, click, 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 text, 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 video, 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 doing, 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 going, going, going. I thought technology was to give us a break and to give us more free time. What happened to that freedom?
seems like all we're doing is working more.
Yeah.
We
I
just
mean,
we just work more. You
yeah,
know what I mean? We can
on
do
something
more
else, on
because
something else.
technology provides a means and a way to do more. So then we just do more, and that's groovy. We wouldn't even be able to have this show without the technology that we have today. We wouldn't be able to do radio. All the rest of it. We wouldn't be able to have websites. So I understand. And believe me, Bernard and I are in the boat. We have to constantly back away from social engineering because we're all, look, we're all affected by social engineering. It's not like, oh, just because we're talking about it and we have a clue what it is and what it's how it operates in our lives doesn't mean that we don't do it. Hey, I'll tell you who probably is not social engineered is a monk in the middle of nowhere who
Right,
doesn't even interact with people. That monk is probably in a completely different divine world, no doubt.
right, right,
Other than that, I don't want to be a monk.
right.
So I have a choice. I could be a monk too, but I'm very social. So I want to be social. I like being social. But I'm just saying, that conscious application that Bernard was talking about when you get in your car and you're driving to work, be conscious of, what roads you're using, be conscious of how you feel at work, because that's the beginning. It becomes the beginning. And I'm here to tell you, for everyone that thinks that, oh, I moved out of my parents' house and they paid all my bills and I became a rock star and blah, 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 blah. No, as a matter of fact, my parents were not too happy when I moved out and just did music. They were not too happy about that. So I had to do it on my own. And no, they didn't pay my bills and they didn't help. And I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad because I got to learn how to do it. And I look at what we're doing now. Look at what you're doing, Bernard. Look at what I'm doing. People told us, I know when we started this a couple of years ago, people told me that I would never be able to do this, that I had to pay webmasters, that I had to pay people to do this. I have to pay. So here we are. And a team of volunteers. God bless you. I love you guys. I couldn't do it without you.
Same
My
here.
webmasters taught me how to use code and all the rest of it taught me how to do so many things. My poster guy, Sean, I mean, we're all helping one another. That's the other thing. And so is your team, Bernard. You guys all help one another to get to where you need to go, like Anella, and Trevor, and Trevor helps you and you help Trevor. See, no, yes, we can. We're doing it. How dare you? Don't tell me I can't do this. We're doing it.
What's that? We just posted a meme about a week ago. It's I think it's like it says, "Actually, I can." Actually, I can. Yes, I can.
Yeah,
Don't tell me
right.
I can.
Yeah,
Anything is
don't tell me I
possible.
can't. I've got people right now arguing with me about, that I can't stop the control. The control's too big. The new world order's in place. And if I think that I'm free in all of this, and I need my head examined, and it's like,
Well,
and I say, I'm free.
absolutely.
I'm free in this. So, dude, this isn't about us being better than you or any of that stuff. We bring you these programs because they're important, they're reminders, they're helpful to all of us. They remind me, they remind Bernard, it gets us re inspired. And all that we're trying to do or attempting to do, or all our intentions are to do, is to continue to keep us all together strong. And the one love that GIC talks about on a daily basis, and to encourage one another to be free, man. I sound like a 60s hippie, don't
Yeah.
I? I need my headband. But it's about
No, it is. It
freedom.
is. It's
Freedom.
about sovereignty, and it's
And
about
guess what? Freedom ain't free.
no, and it's about mental sovereignty. I feel as well.
Yeah.
Whose thoughts are you thinking? Are you thinking the thoughts
I
that the
know.
TV told you? Are you thinking the thoughts your mother told you? Are you thinking the thoughts that the president told you, or the prime minister, or the queen? Are you thinking your thoughts? Where did they come from? And I feel that has
Yeah.
a lot to do with what we're talking about today is mental and personal and spiritual sovereignty.
Get
And,
your
and
own.
learning how to acknowledge it. It's not going to happen overnight. And it's okay. I mean, I catch myself singing the Geico commercial. I mean, I don't even think they have a tune, but you know what I'm saying. I catch myself sing. Oh my gosh! I was singing the Chase Freedom song the other day. I don't even own a credit
Freedom.
card. I don't even own a
Freedom.
credit card. Where did that come from? I don't even own a TV to watch that, so I must be getting it from somewhere. So, I mean, that's the reality of it is that, we are being bombarded and we can only do what we can do. But the first point and the first step is being aware that you have the ability, that you have the ability to be free of the hive mentality, that you have the ability to be free of social engineering slash marketing. And it's okay to think against the social norms. I mean, I'll say something right now that's going to piss a lot of people off. I don't wear a yellow ribbon. I don't support the military. Oh my. Guess why I don't? Figure it out. But anyway, there, I said something against the norm.
And I don't even know, honestly, if it's against anything. My kung fu masters taught me that resistance will get you in trouble.
Exactly.
I think what it really is just there's so many lanes to pick and choose. Just go, pick your lane and go and do, and eventually you don't, it's basically, we don't, I think in part of the new paradigm as well is we don't even have to be against anything. We just move forward, not
No,
comply, just cruise,
absolutely.
and it's just a thought. It's just a thought. I'm not trying to correct you, Bernard.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking that. If
Okay,
anything, I was just thinking. I guess a better term is to say I support life.
exactly.
I
There you go.
support life.
Like I think even the words to say, and I say it all the time, against GMO. People ask me, "Are you against GMOs?" And I say, "Yes." And it's like, you know what I'm saying, with the
Yes.
flow of everything that we're learning and growing and evolving.
And guess
I,
what? If you're against GMO, quote unquote, you also support life.
right.
You support
Cheers.
natural life. And speaking of which, we're gonna have to start wrapping this up. It has been an hour actually since we started taping again. But I just wanted to say that, as usual, Roxy, you're always a pleasure. We enjoy having you come on the GIC, and we're so grateful you're a part of our family after all these years, and my friend, first
Oh,
and foremost.
absolutely. I don't know any other way. No, thank you. I mean, it's been really cool. Thanks. And thanks for always inviting me into your forums and the whole nine yards. It's cool. You have some pretty, cool members. We're all getting to know one another little by little, and it's a really cool thing. Bernard, I just have to say what you've built in the GIC, the years that you put behind this, and how you're always migrating and growing and changing and finding ways to keep the GIC going. Um, I really commend you because your staying power is unreal. You're very much an inspiration to me and many others, and so I personally, and I know I speak on behalf of everyone that's a GIC member. I want to thank you because you just never give up the ship, and I don't know how you do it. I mean, if you ever gave up the ship, I mean, I'd be like, oh, because
And
I
I've
might,
been there a few
you know
times
what I
where,
mean? I'd be like, if he's going down, something big's
yeah.
going on.
I wouldn't know what else to do. I really don't. I laugh, because, and again, just to shed a little humor on this is, Roxy and I, and so many of us, I've always said a couple times a year or once a year, we're like, that's it, I'm done. I'm done. Can't do this anymore. But what else? What else am I going to do? I mean,
We always find a new way to do it, though.
or it just needs to be reinvented because the reality of it is, it's about integrity. And for me, my whole work with GIC is about my integrity and the integrity of the work that I put out there. And what I mean by that is being honest. I don't like to market. I don't like to be, sparkly or, whatever. You know what I'm saying. I don't like all that razzle dazzle stuff. However, I will say that even if I didn't do this, I wouldn't know what else to do because I feel so connected with humanity. I feel so connected with life, and I feel so connected with this change that's happening on the planet that I know this is why I'm here. And I think you do too, and I think many of us do. So for me to do something else, I mean, you might as well throw me in solitary confinement. I wouldn't know what else to do. I know that this is my calling, and I thank you for acknowledging the. I don't know whether you want to call it stubbornness or luck or whatever, but yeah, we're going to keep going.
I call it tenacity.
And tenacity, thank you. I like that word. Thank you. And we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep growing. We're up to 4 programs a month now, which is actually 16 programs, but 4 shows, and. Who knows what the future has to hold? Who knows? And I look forward to seeing what it does, especially working with you, Roxy. I hope we get more opportunities to work together, actually.
Oh, we will. We always do. We always create new paths and new ways. And so, yes, thank you. And um, aloha to everybody who tuned in today. And of course, we'll have this in the archive on both the Truth Denied YouTube channel and the GIC YouTube channel. So you can go to either or to get the program again and send it to your friends and family or just watch it repeatedly.
Yes, and share it with everybody. I feel it's very important for people to know that there is another way, and that some people have figured out another way, kind of.
We do the best we can. It's a process. We're not striving for perfection. It's all a process. And the more and more people that get freed up, the more and more friends we have. That's all that happens that we can communicate with.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, again, thank you very much, Roxy. And please remember, everyone, you can find Roxy at thetruththenight.com. And of course, she is a fellow host on Revolution Radio. You come on, like 4 hours after I do on Tuesday, I believe.
I come on from 8 to 10 Eastern time.
Oh, so you're about 6 hours after I'm on from noon to 2. So we're both on Tuesdays at Revolution Radio. A good day to watch or a good day to listen. Anyway, we love you all very, very much. We'll be back again next month, the last Thursday of the month, for another Tribe TV broadcast. And I will be back here on GIC TV next week with another GIC TV interview. Or, no, I'm sorry, I'll be doing consciousness class. We'll be teaching a class. We do theory and we do practice. So if you're interested in expanding your consciousness and actually are ready to do some work, and I do mean work, join us, come back here on GIC TV every first and third Thursday of the month. I'm sorry, every first and third Thursday of the month, same time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'll see you guys then. Next Monday, I'll be on Revolution Radio with Sonia, the Truther Girl. And I look forward to that. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you so, so much. And of course, as usual, thank you very much, Roxy. We love you very much, everyone. And thank you for being a part of our world. Bye-bye.